Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey there people, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter, and in fact, I think at the time of this is going to be published, you have less than 2 days, maybe even just a day, to get over to Kickstarter and check it out. Where there was an unfortunate delay, we tried to get this up as quickly as possible, but you still have time if you're watching this on December 11th. So go and check it out. But that game is called Draconis Invasion. It's from designer Jeff Lai. There's going to be a link down in the description section underneath this video screen, and then also up in the top corner I'll have a card that you can click on that will take you to the Kickstarter link. Go there, find out more information than I could possibly tell you throughout the rest of this video, and hopefully consider backing the project. Remember, you don't have much time before the end. Now, Draconis Invasion is a deck building game. You and the other players represent the forces of good who are trying to protect their fantasy warfare lands against these oncoming invaders who are like these dark forces, be it necromancers and the skeleton armies, or these dragons and their fierce armies. You have a battalion of defenders who are going to help you fend them off and kill them and take them for glory, because of course you are still competing nations against each other. Like I said, it's a deck building game, so you're taking these defenders along with the money in order to purchase them and hire them and use them and employ them. You build your deck from these different types of cards and then use them against these invading forces. There's also different achievements like campaign cards that you want to try to use and achieve as well. Let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with a prototype version of the game. So some terminology is different. Some of the things that you see here like artwork and such may change in the final version, so just keep that in mind. Go to the Kickstarter page to confirm all of these different things. Then we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, I'm going to give you a brief look at Draconis Invasion. This is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players. The goal of the game is to have the most glory points by the end of the game. The end of the game is going to be triggered when either one of two conditions is met. If the last event is drawn from the event deck, which is this blue deck of cards with a die on top of it up here, or if one player has defeated 6 of the invader cards. These are the different invasion cards, the ones that are slightly oversized than the other cards in the game. If someone has accumulated 6 of those and or the final event has been revealed, that is going to trigger the end of the game. At that point, everyone reveals all the points that they've garnered during the course of the game, and whoever has the most glory points is going to be the winner of the game, with ties going to whoever has collected more of the red invaders, which are the more deadly ones. Now, the first thing I'm going to mention is that this setup of the game, or in particular, the stock of cards here, both action cards and defender cards, these are going to change based on the type of scenario you want to play for the game. Now, the rulebook is going to have several different scenarios with several different layouts of different cards that you can use. You can also randomize them. There will be a separate deck of cards called a randomizer deck, which will determine which action cards and which defender cards are going to come out for you. But either way, whatever you decide on doing, you're going to put the stocks of cards out here like so. You're also going to have a stock of money cards of gold in different denominations, 10s, 20s, and 30s. You'll have to buy the 20s and 30s during the course of the game. You could also buy the 10s as well, but you probably don't want to do that. You're actually going to start off with 7 of these in your starting deck. And then there's a stock of despair cards, which, because of the way this is a prototype, despair and terror are going to be used interchangeably. I believe it's terror at this point in the development of the game. This was an earlier prototype, but those two words are interchangeable whenever you see despair or terror. Then you have the events deck with a prototype of the terror die that is on top of it, the 6 representing a skull for the purposes of this. You also have many different types of action cards and defender cards. We're going to get back to those in a moment. But for now, in addition to the 7, 10 gold cards that I mentioned you started with, you're also going to start off with 5 of these Imperial Guard cards, which you'll notice have a cost of 0. Just like the 10 gold cards. and they deal 5 damage and have no gold requirement to use them. We'll get to all of that stuff. So yes, you will start off with a starting deck of cards. You'll shuffle up those 12 cards that I mentioned, and then draw a hand of 6 cards. And first off, for anyone who, or third off, or fourth off, or fifth off, or wherever we are right now, if anyone's not familiar with a deck building game, here is the basic premise. In a deck building game, whether you're talking about actual cards, or dice, or tokens, whatever kind of / building game it is, every player is going to start off with the same inferior deck or pool of cards, or whatever it might be. But then during the course of the game, you're going to purchase new cards in order to flesh out your deck. Whenever you purchase cards or gain cards, you're going to go into your discard pile. Whenever you would have to draw cards, and in this game, you're always drawing 6 cards at a time at the end of every round and at the beginning of the game. Whenever you would have to draw cards and you cannot draw any more cards because your deck has run out, you reshuffle your discard pile and then keep drawing until you fill it up to the right amount. That means that all of those new cards that you're buying during the course of the game are going to eventually make their way into your hand, and invariably they're going to be better than the cards that you started off with. And that is essentially the spirit of a deck building game, that you're getting stronger over time in building up your engine. Another thing that you're going to start off with at the start of Draconis are these campaign cards. These campaign cards you're going to shuffle up. Every player is going to be dealt out 4 of them. You're going to choose 2 to keep and put them face down secret in front of you, and shuffle the other 2 cards that you had the options of back into the campaign deck. And then, after every player has done that, and I have this set up for a 5-player game, by the way, which you're not really going to see out here. It's just going to affect the number of cards in some of the, like the event deck, for example. But once every player has finished choosing their 2 campaign cards, so all the cards get shuffled back in, the whole deck is shuffled, and then 3 random cards are going to be placed out next to it that players can draw cards from during the course of the game. Now, these campaign cards are going to link up with the different invaders in the game, and basically they're like achievements that you are personally vying towards. In other words, if I was to have this one, the Reaper card, as one of my campaign cards, at the end of the game, if I've killed a Reaper, I'm going to get 2 glory points. Whereas for the Skeletal Soldier, I need to kill 2 Skeletal Soldiers at least in order to claim those 4 glory points. And by the way, let's go ahead and take a look at those invaders. These are the main invader cards. Basically, you're going to have a deck of both black and red invaders, which represent somewhat weaker and then much, much stronger invaders that you can deal with during the course of the game. And they have their own different special abilities and conditions. They're going to have different abilities that happen when they come out. Now, at the start of the game, you'll randomize the 6 total that you have out here, and nothing happens from their special abilities. But from then on, whenever someone takes out one of the invaders, they'll put it face down in front of them, and then they immediately have to draw another one from the top of the deck and put it out, and then that player is going to be subject to the nasty effects of the incoming invader. So just as an example, let's go ahead and take a look at these now while we're here. So this Undead Invader, the Reaper, says that when this invader is revealed, the attacking player gains a Despair card. Now let's talk about those Despair cards. I mentioned those before. That's the big deck of cards here. Despair cards go into your deck like all the other cards you purchase, but they are pure junk. They have no special ability, they don't help you at all, and in fact, having the Despair cards in hand escalate the potential that you are going to have to draw a negative event on your turn. So you do not want Despair cards at all, but you may have to take one if this guy was to be revealed, for example. The other notable things on the Invader cards are its health. This is at least how much damage you have to deal in order to take out this Invader on your turn, but you could possibly deal more. And that's how many glory points you're going to get just for having it, not counting the campaign cards that you can potentially achieve just for having defeated it. Then you see here's the Skeletal Soldier, which is much, much weaker and has no nasty reveal effect. The Succubus says that when this invader is revealed, the attacking player must discard a defender card from their next hand if available, so you start off with less cards. Now let's take a look at a few of the nasty red invaders. The Fire Dragon, 80 health, but it is worth 8 glory points, and when this invader is revealed, the attacking player gains 2 Despair cards to the top of their deck. That's even worse, because that means that now your next draw is really going to be terrible because you're right off the bat drawing 2 Despair cards. The Lich King here says that when this leader is revealed, the attacking player gains 2 Despair cards. That's slightly better. He's got less health and less victory points or glory points, consequently. and the Balar. When this invader is revealed, the attacking player chooses another player. You both gain a despair card, so at least that's something. And you get it has 40 health and gives you 3 glory points. So while we just touched on the subject of events, let's go ahead and talk about those a bit. Like I said, the event cards could potentially come out. It's actually going to start off on the skull side, and if at the end of an attacker's turn, the die is on the skull side, they're going to have to draw one of the event cards from the deck and resolve it against themselves, potentially. So, like I said, for every despair card or terror card in your hand, you have to bump up the die by 1. After an event has been resolved, it goes back to 1, and then it has to work its way back up to the skull, which is the 6. But you resolve it at the end of your turn. So you have, even if you bump up to a skull early, you have until the end of your turn to try to shore yourself up, whatever it might be. And when the event card affects someone, it might affect either multiple players or just the player who is in the lead. The lead, quote unquote, being whoever has the most kills, which might be you, might be someone else, or you might just all get affected, so it doesn't really matter. So let's take a look at those cards. There's 3 main event cards. You have Dark Rising, which says that the leading players gain 1 despair card. You have Chaos, which says that all players discard 2 cards, then reshuffle and reveal new invader cards and ignore invader effects. And Trauma, leading players must discard 3 cards. So these could really set you back. Now, let's talk about how a turn is going to go in Draconis. So you'll determine someone who's going to be the start player, and then play is going to go around the table. On your turn, you have what's called the ABCD system. That's action, buy, campaign, and defeat. You can do 1 action, and then you may do 1 of the other 3, whether it's buying, campaign cards, or defeating an invader. So let's take a look at the action cards. Remember, you get to use 1 of these cards that ends up in your hand per turn. Well, first off, in general, up in the top corner of the card is the cost of the card. So this is how much gold you would have to use if you chose to do the buy action on your or the buy instead of the BCD choices. If you chose to buy, this is how you would do it. You'd have to discard gold cards equal at least to that cost up in the top right corner, and you would be able to take that card. So speaking of actions in particular right now, you have cards like Casualty of War, which is going to let you trash a non-despair card from your hand, and also gets you +1 action, which means you'll be able to use that action and then use another one afterwards. And then you have Shape-Shifting, which says that you get +1 action, but you can also discard cards from your hand and keep drawing cards to replace them. You notice how these costs are kind of escalating. You have Rush to Battle, which gets you an additional card draw, plus another action, plus 10 gold. So it's altogether a win right there. And the last one I'll show you just of the action cards is Enchantment, which gets you +1 action, and all attacking defenders deal +10 damage during this turn. So you buff up all of your defender cards. So you get to use 1 or potentially more of those cards depending on which actions you actually play on your turn. Then you go to the BCD thing, and like I already kind of explained, buying cards is just paying the cost up in the top corner and then putting that card into your discard pile. Then you have Campaign as your other option. Remember, you can only do 1 of these 3 actions. Campaign means simply taking 2 of the campaign cards. You can either take them from the face-up ones or take them from the top of the deck, and you immediately replace any face-up cards that you take. And finally, your last of the 3 options is trying to defeat an invader. To defeat an invader, you have to use the defender cards that you'll potentially have at your disposal by paying. First off, you have to buy them from a previous turn, and then once you have them in hand, you can pay their required defender costs in the bottom right-hand corner, and that will enable you to use them and use them against the invaders and potentially defeat one of the invaders. You all start off with Imperial Guards, which give you 5 damage, but you might be able to upgrade to Dread Knights, which give you 15 damage, but they're going to cost you 40 gold in order to use. Some of them have special abilities, so for instance, the Golem says that if you attack, avoid gaining a despair card from the revealed leader effect. So if you would normally gain one, now you don't. Then we have cards like the Shaman, which costs you a whopping 90 gold to buy. However, he only does 10 damage and is 70 to use, but his special ability is that this defender does plus 5 damage for every card in your hand, which could potentially be a lot of damage. And then you have the Warlord, which says that this defender does plus 5 damage when attacking with another defender. That's actually a little typo on the card here. It's supposed to be with another defender. So the more defenders that you attack with, the more powerful your Warlord gets, in excess of his base of 20 damage. And like I already mentioned, if by using these defenders and paying for their costs, you can deal enough damage to one of the face-up invaders, you're able to defeat it, take it, potentially have to deal with the effect of the newly revealed invader, but then you're going to gain those glory points at the end of the game. And play is going to continue like this until either one player has accumulated 6 of these invader cards, or the last of the event cards has been revealed from the deck, and everyone or potentially one person has been subject to it. When one of these conditions is met, you're going to count up all of your points, all of the glory points you gain directly from the invaders, plus all the campaign card conditions that you've met. You'll reveal those at that point, and whoever has the most glory is the winner of Draconis Invasion. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. There's a lot of things you notice right away about Draconis. First and foremost is that artwork, which is this really epic, high quality, very highly detailed artwork that goes very strongly with the theme of you having these defending warriors who need to battle back against these invading hordes. They make the monsters look really sufficiently terrifying on the card artwork, so it really feels like you're fighting back against these like epic things, and some of them really are epic, especially the monsters coming out of the red deck of invader cards. So they did a really good job getting the theme across as far as that goes. And then the fact that it is a deck building game. Now there are a lot of deck building games out there, of course, but this one it takes some of the best elements from some of those deck building games and puts it together into something a lot more unique than the sum of its parts. The fact that you have these different warriors that are in a static array, meaning that unlike games that are just completely random as to what cards might be coming out for you to purchase, you now have a set display of cards that you can decide ahead of time, either based off of you'll have the deck randomizers that will say, okay, these are the cards you're using, but this is how they're going to be for the rest of the game, or you have set allotments based on different criteria that are in the rule book, or you can just come up with your own allotment. However you want to do it, you'll know exactly what you're going to have access to for the duration of the game, and then build your strategy accordingly. Now, what is going to be random are the invaders coming out in the campaign cards as well, but every game needs a little bit of randomness, and the fact that you have to try and build your deck to always be as strong as possible for whatever invaders might be coming out, and also to deal with their revealed effects that are going to be coming out. It might be like, yay, I just destroyed a giant dragon, but if the next thing that comes out and replaces it can cripple you with the amount of despair cards or terror cards that it gives to you, that's going to be a problem. So you need to make sure that you're strong and well-rounded all around, and make sure you can kind of deal and mitigate the effect of some of those terror cards that you have and the corresponding event cards that you may have to deal with because you're taking down too many terror cards that are going to force that die to go up and up and up and force you to potentially draw an event card on your turn. So that whole dynamic there where it's like, oh, I hope I don't draw too many terror cards because those are going to force me to bump it up, or maybe I'll just bump it up a little bit just by chance, and then it's going to go to the next player and they're going to have to deal with it. That whole sort of hot potato thing of it moving around is a very interesting thing that I haven't seen in any other deck building game, combined with the fact that the monsters that you kill are going to be separate from any of the other cards that you can purchase, which unlike other deck building games like Ascension are always mixed together. And then it's like this random chance of well, maybe I have enough combat currency this turn, but maybe I don't have enough currency to buy cards, or vice versa. Now it's like currency buys and employs your forces, and then you take their damage and use it against the enemies. It's more straightforward that way, and it makes more thematic sense as well. There's a bevy of different cards, lots of different options. Every gameplay setup is going to be different, so the game is going to have a lot of variety and feel different each time that you play. And together with the theme and the artwork, I think this game is going to appeal to deck building game fans of fantasy games, people who like strategic Euro-style games because of the Dominion-style card array that's going to be set in stone at the start of each game. Those types of strategic game players are all going to find something potentially to enjoy in Draconis Invasion. And the fact that it's even though it does have complexity to it, it's relatively straightforward and it's fast to set up and fast to play. Means that even newcomer gamers can still find something to like here and still get into it very easily. So, if you are one of these people that falls in one of those groups and think that might be right for you or someone you know, go to the official Kickstarter project page. You have very little time left. It's in the description section underneath the video. You'll find the link, and also on the card that you can click on. That'll take you to the page. Find out more information and hopefully consider backing Draconis Invasion from designer Jeff Lai. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.